Welcome everyone to another session of our Global Employability Expert Series. So today I'm very excited. We have a very interesting webinar, but first let me introduce myself. I'm Mirta Aguirre. I'm the head of employability, and our webinar is about bringing you new ideas, new concepts in employability. And today we are bringing you a very interesting topic, which is what career opportunities are there in the modern technology space? And we have a great speaker, who you will just know in 1 minute. And so before, let me remind you how this webinar works. So you have our Q&A below. You have a small box where you can write your questions for our speaker. We are recording this session, so you can share it later on with someone you think is going to appreciate our webinar, or you yourself, you can rewatch it. We also have our YouTube channel where you can subscribe and always receive our latest videos. And remember, if you have any specific question about your program, please reach out to your IEM. Your IEM is the person who has been contacting you from Virtual Internships. Excellent. So let's meet as our speaker. And today we have Priyadeep. So currently Priyadeep, PD, we're going to call him PD, is the global head of product at Virtual Internships. Prior to this, PD was the chief product officer at one of India's largest skilling and staffing companies and vice president at a collective impact nonprofit that enables small businesses. PD started his career as the founder and CEO of Kidovators, delivering 21st century skills through a learning platform to over 140,000 students and 10,000 educators. PD is also a TED speaker and lives in Bangalore in India with his wife and a beautiful baby kitten. And so today's webinar, in this webinar, we're going to discover the career opportunities in the modern technology space. Career opportunities across product, design, engineering, and growth have cropped up massively over the last decade. How do you look to build a career in these fields? What skills, capabilities, and mindsets are critical to success as individual contributors as well as leaders in this career field? These are some of the questions that PD will unpack during the session, and at the end, you will have more clarity on what your career journey will within the tech industry could look like. So very interesting, because I understand many of you have gone through a boot camp before doing this internship. So we believe this is going to be really interesting for you all. So, well, welcome, Priya. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Meta. Wonderful to be here among this very excited group of people. And I really hope that we can sort of have a good set of takeaways for them by the end of the hour. Yeah. Okay, so I'll just take over the screen, Meta, if that's okay.
Yes, you can take it from there.
Folks, I hope you can see my screen. Okay, let's begin, right? I mean, if you think about roles like UI UX designers, if you think of SEO marketing specialists, if you think of the product squad structure in itself, 20 years back, like either they were in a nascent space or did not exist at all, right? Which means that these career fields just propped up because of technology growing, because of the need for so much expertise across different spaces in terms of the product itself, marketing, sales across the tech companies, right? And what this means is that 20 years ahead, when you will be building your careers, certain jobs that don't exist today will start coming up, right? So how do you stay current in this system? How do you make sure that you are relevant, right? And you're consistently relevant, you're constantly growing in your careers, especially when you're looking at both product technology and the growth space, across industries. anyone out here who is not looking to build a career in these fields? Let me just get a quick view. Okay, so I would assume that all of you are looking to either get into technology roles as engineers, or you're trying to get into growth roles, or you're trying to become product managers, right? Or designers. Is that a right assumption for all of you? You can just write a yes in the chat box, and I'll get to know. Okay, cool. So Meher writes yes. Okay, there's a lot of yeses flowing in. Awesome. This is exciting stuff. Okay, so let's unpack what does that mean for you, right? So you would be hearing these words, right? Product-led growth. We want to build a collaborative business. We want to have empathy for users. We want to have outcome-oriented work happening at startups, and so many more, right? But what does it really mean? What has happened in the last 2 decades that these sort of roles are coming up? One, of course, for a fact that tech businesses are becoming more and more mainstream. If you think about something like Zoom was a tiny business in 2013, right? Like 3 million users. From then on, and they did a blockbuster IPO. What happened? What changed for a company like Zoom? The need for people to connect virtually, like how we are connected right now, increased dramatically over time, right? And then COVID pushed that further. If you look at companies like Slack, if you look at companies like Airtable, if you look at companies like Loom, the need for these companies, right, just because of the way business is functioning today, has sort of come up and grown significantly, right? Which means that you need enough quality workforce to manage these exceptional products, to manage the scale at which they're operating, to manage the sort of future of these products. What does it look like? Also, the world has shifted away from that clunky process where a salesperson is trying to sell you things, like you would walk into a store and they would try to pitch something to you, to a place where you as customers are discovering things on your own. You're downloading apps, you're experiencing it, and only when you're convinced yourself, you're actually sort of paying for it, right? So that's what is changed in this world, right? So in today's world, the user is absolutely at the center of entire sort of roadmap for all technology businesses, which means that if you are an aspiring engineer, if you are an aspiring designer, if you are an aspiring SEO or marketing specialist, or if you are an aspiring product person, the world is your oyster. The kind of opportunities that you keep getting in the next 2, 3, 4 decades, I mean, it's going to be insane. So I'm super excited for sort of your careers and what does that look like in this time frame, right? Let's start unpacking those different career opportunities, right? What does it mean to be an engineer today? I mean, engineers were there even 50 years back at IBM and Intel. And how different are engineers today from that point in time? So you would know that the programming languages, they have like significantly shifted, right? So I'm pretty sure back like 30, 40 years back, when Microsoft was new, people were using like languages like COBOL, Pascal, Basic, and whatnot, and then C and C Sharp came. And today you have such a more powerful, modern and scalable tech stack, right? So React, so the entire MERN stack, right? So Mongo, Express, Node, React, uh, and then the variations of those, right? So Vue.js, Next.js, it's endless. And what this means as like, again, if you're an aspiring engineer, it's not good enough to just know one of these languages, right? You can't build your career like 25 or 30 years back. A person could have learned C sharp or C and said, I can sort of run my career through this, by just knowing this. Not true anymore. That's completely shifted, right? So while today, let's say something like React.js is current, it may not be the case 10 years down the line, which means that you as an engineer need to keep updating yourself, need to keep upskilling, right? You need to behave like a generalist. And when you see an opportunity to sort of grab something in terms of learnings, just go for it. And that's true for everyone. Let's look at designers. So UI UX designer was not even a role 2 decades back. Nothing. There was no role in companies which said you needed designers. But today, the quality of experiences people have on technology platforms is so significant, right? Because if you're think about it, right? Let's say if you're using LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, and if ever your experience becomes clunky or poor, you leave those platforms. And that's what businesses are dealing with today, right? So you need designers to sort of really unpack beautiful designs to make sure that I'll give you a great example for design, which is Tinder. So Tinder, has that swiping left, right feature. And the reason why they built it this way is because it actually resembles the turning of page. Like when you're reading a book, you move the pages one after the other, right? And that's what this meant, right? So your mind is your sort of brain is hardwired to think in that particular way. So certain kind of swipe is like a positive connotation for you, and certain kind of swipe is a negative connotation for you, and that's what they did. If you look at any kind of application, just okay, give me some example of global apps that you use, right? Let's see on the chat. Do you use LinkedIn? Do you use Facebook? Are you using Slack? Are these any of these tools that you use on a consistent basis? Do you use Zoom regularly? Your answer will give me a few pointers to start explaining again. Okay, all right. So Reem says yes. Now, if you think of it, uh, Zoom, do you know why Zoom gives you 40 minutes free session? What's the purpose of that? Anyone? Like even if you're not paid, Zoom allows you to do sessions of 40 minutes absolutely free. I'll wait like another 15 seconds and then I'll explain. Okay, Meher says yes. Zoom and go to webinar. You're right. Not just go to webinar, but when you're using the free feature of Zoom over and over again, you get accustomed to Zoom. You get used to Zoom, right? Today, and when you need to, let's say you're at some point you're so comfortable with Zoom that you say, hey, I am okay to pay this amount of money for the great experience I'm having, and that's what you do, right? In a lot of schools around the world, people are taught Microsoft Office, right? And so Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and all of these are sort of used in schools. So if you're in like 6th grade or 7th grade, you're taught these tools. And what happens is as you start learning to use these tools, uh, you become comfortable in them. And when you grow up, you're like, I just want to use the Microsoft Office suite because that's what I'm comfortable with, right? And that's what products are doing, right? They are sort of trying to be in your life consistently. And there are great sort of engineers, product teams, growth teams who are sitting in the background and making all of this happen for you. So what I'm assuming is that all of you are going to be in a similar boat very, very soon, right? You're all going to graduate, you're all going to get into these careers. And what you need to keep in mind is for all of these roles that are listed here, right? So for engineers, for designers, for analysts, for acquisition specialists, so people who work in SEO, who work in content marketing, who work in social media marketing, product marketing specialists, product managers, growth managers, for each one of you, the can you name who is at the center of anything that you do? Every single work that you do, there's somebody at the center of it. Who's that? Who are you building for? Okay, Maher says internet. Okay, let's get specific. There's a user you're building for, right? So there are groups of users that you're building for. So you build exactly. Dana says absolutely correctly, end user. And so from what has changed in the last 40 years is that initially we were building for corporations. We were building for sort of intermediaries. We were building for salespeople to go and sell out in the market. Today we are not doing any of that. We are building for the end user. We want the end user to have a great experience, and that sort of staggers back into what all of these roles do, right? So if you really sort of start dissecting these roles, um, as you get into your career, you need to do 5 very critical things, right? The first is never stop learning, right? So today you might have learned one programming language. Tomorrow you need to upgrade yourself. If you are, let's say, a product marketing specialist using certain means today, you need to keep on evolving because otherwise you're outdated so quickly. You're like a dinosaur, right? You can't do that. Second, you need to connect with other experts in your space, right? Constantly keep connected to them. Like, for example, I use Twitter to just connect with product experts around the world. I'm constantly engaged with them. They post their lessons and learnings, and I sort of ask questions on top of that. I share my learnings and somebody else. So what happens is instead of learning in a silo, it actually like there's a collective learning that's happening there, right? And so like start doing that ASAP, right? So get on LinkedIn, get on Twitter, make sure you sort of connect with the right kind of people in your industry, whatever role you want to pick up, and start working with them. Third, always think of like 2, 3, 5 years into what you want to do in your career, right? Because let's say you want to become an analyst, right? So what does it really mean to be an analyst, right? That is it only about crunching data? Is that all you're supposed to do? Or you're supposed to crunch data and look at what the outcomes are going to be, right? What do you need to change in a product setup, right, for it to be really more useful for customers? So I think when you look at any of these careers, you need to be able to turn on a knob and say, in 5 years' time, I want to be able to do this in this space, right? You might end up coming into the in your role as, let's say, an associate product manager or a product owner. You may get promoted to a product manager then, and then eventually you might even become a product leader and like a head of product like me, right? What changes as you go through this journey? The your learnings, right? How you learn, how you use data, how you use information to process things and create something beautiful that the end user wants to use. That's what you need to keep getting better at, right? So you need to be able to think about this in advance, right? For example, when I finished school, I mean, I didn't say that I want to be a head of product at a company, but I knew that I wanted to head a vertical within a growing company, right? And that's what I'm doing right now. The fourth lesson is uh, don't rely too much on what you learned in your academics, right? I mean, a lot of people would say, okay, the college is important, university is important, your degree is important, but that's not where most of, like, for example, I learned 0% of my product role in the university, right? Nothing there. I was actually a mechanical engineer, right? So this has very little to do with that. But I sort of did not just rely on that learning, right? So I just kept on moving ahead and believing that I need to get up every single day that I wake up. I need to learn something new to be able to sort of fit into the roles that I'm in. And fifth, and most importantly, and I keep telling this to everyone, is you got to be kind. You got to start building empathy, because business today, it's not about being cutthroat, really. If you really think of it, let's say a Facebook or a LinkedIn, they're not fighting out in the market to, build a market share. They are creating extreme empathy for end users, right? And you need to do that. And this is something that you have to cultivate in your life on a regular basis. You look at any of these roles, you just, and you can't be that, okay, I'll have empathy as a UX designer, but I won't have empathy otherwise in my life, right? It doesn't work that way. So it's something that you cultivate regularly with everyone around you. You sort of get better and better at it, because your empathy is your number one insight generating mechanism. It's a machine, right? It'll keep telling you so many things, and you will see that because of it, you're also progressing pretty like quickly and well in your career, right? So I think that's about those 5 things that I had to say about what do you need to do in order to build a great career. And the last and most important point, and actually I have a couple of them. So the first one is growth mindset versus fixed mindset, right? I'll tell you what a fixed mindset means. That, for example, let's say I withdraw money by writing a check, that I go to a bank, give it to the clerk, and get money from there, right? And I consistently keep doing that all my life. And at some point, I started believing that that's the only way to withdraw money from the bank, right? That's fixed mindset. So there is no place for fixed mindset in this world. Nothing is fixed, except for the absolute facts, like sun rising in the east, setting in the west. Yes, that's a fact. Like, you can't change that. That's unchangeable, right? But everything else, other than that, in the world that we live in, is changeable, right? So currency is changeable. The place that you live in is changeable. The kind of work that you do is changeable. And to be able to adapt to all of that, you need a growth mindset. There is no greater tool than this that you can have in your life, right? So think about this, right? So you are in a place today. You are let's say you're about to finish school, or you've just graduated. You're looking for your first role. You find a job that you like, right? But it's not something that you love. Keep chasing after the role that you love, right? Keep going after, keep changing, switching roles one after the other. Spend 2, 3, 4 years in each one of them, or even less than a year if you want, right? But don't settle for like little things, right? Aim for larger things. Keep learning, keep growing, because without this growth mindset, we are not going anywhere in this world. And especially when in the technology space, if you like, for example, Sundar Pichai, who happens to be the CEO of Google, um, I mean, he didn't go ahead and say, "Hey, I'll be the CEO of Google," right? But what he said is that what he believed is that I'll keep growing in my role on a daily basis, right? I'll keep getting better at it. Satya Nadella, by the way, who also happens to be from the same school that I graduated in. So Satya Nadella is the Microsoft chairman, right? He didn't graduate from college saying that, okay, I'll be the CEO and chairman of Microsoft one day. But I'll keep doing the best that I can in my role that I'm in, right? And I think that's how most people are growing today. And this is, while this was true in the past, while it was so true for our parents and their parents' generations, it was not as true as it is today. Like, this is the only way in which you excel in your careers, and there is absolutely no way to avoid or bypass this. So critical to keep in mind. The next one is this, and I keep getting questions from a lot of young people who are, let's say, getting into engineering careers, right? That they say that, hey, I could be a great engineer, right? I could be like a specialist who codes very well. I'm a full stack developer. I like spend 15, 20 years in this career. Or I could start on the engineering track. I could then become an engineering manager, and then from there I can go on to be like a leader in an organization, right? So which one's right for me? And to be really honest, both are right. It's about what's your preference and choice, right? So let's say if you want to be a hyper specialist, which is somebody, let's say if you are a designer or you are a SEO marketing expert, you keep getting better at your job, right? So that there is greater value for you and demand for you in the market. Or you become a person like me, or at least I'm aiming to be an expert generalist, right? Where if you fit me in a product role, I'll do that well today. Tomorrow you want me to pick up a sales role, I'll do well today because the construct and the basics are the same in those industries, right? I can keep switching from one industry to the other. I can keep switching from one job to the other, one role to the other. Both of these paths are okay. But if you see the word, it's not just a specialist, it's a hyper specialist. You really need to keep getting deeper into it, keep getting better at it, at things, right? So there's no place for a specialist, but there's a lot of place in this world for a hyper specialist. Also, there's no place for a generalist. A generalist is like a jack of all trades and master of none, right? An expert generalist is a mini master of all trades. You send them on any path and they will excel in that career. And that's something that you could look at. So either one is great. Both are awesome options, but nothing beyond this, right? So choose your path and just keep running after it, because I just love the fact that, when the time you are 21, 22, 23, 25 years old, the world is your oyster. Like, there's so many possibilities, especially in the world that we live in, right? The kind of companies that are coming up, the kind of work that's being created, the kind of amazing workspaces that are there today, right? Where you are allowed to explore yourself, you're allowed to, grow into exceptional roles. So just make the most of it. And yeah, I'm sort of excited about what you guys do in your careers, right? And no time better than this to be sort of beginning and your careers. Yeah, so that was my little presentation. Meta, over to you.
Yeah, Priya, I wanted to go a little bit the previous slide, and if you could share a little bit about the previous one. Actually, I think it's the first one, that one. So can you tell us a little bit about what these different roles entail? For instance, if I'm not really sure, what options are there for me? Like, what does each of these roles, and what skills do I need to have or develop? What skills do I need to develop? Because we definitely need to understand we can always develop new skills, right? So yeah, what can you tell us? What do these people do? What skills they need to do this role?
No, that's a great question, Meta. So let me take an example of, let's pick up YouTube, right? While YouTube as a company, there's a feature called YouTube Premium, which is the paid feature, right, at YouTube. So there would essentially be a team, a squad that would be given the charge that, hey, build out YouTube Premium, build out a premium subscription service that our users can pick up, right? So the owner of that goal is the product manager, right? So they don't run the team, they're not the boss of the team. but they are the owner of that product goal, that in 6 months time, we want to build a premium feature where our subscribers can sort of, get an ad-free experience. That's the product manager's job. In the product squad, you would have the UI UX designer, you will have the product analysts, data scientists, that sort of group of people, and then you'll have the engineers, right? So the designers would create wireframes of what the experience could look like, right? We'll create that sort of what is the journey of the user, how do they go about experiencing YouTube Premium in the best possible way, right? And what they would, along with the product manager and the engineers do is start going and talking to potential users, right? And ask them, if I were to give you this premium feature, how do you, what all would you ask, right? And based on the interviews they do, in the conversations they do, they'll create that, okay, this is for YouTube Premium. We need to make sure that there are absolutely no ads, right? The recommendation that comes in, it needs to be excellent, right? And that's what the designer would start putting together in terms of the design and the wireframes that they do. The analyst will look at data in terms of what makes YouTube stickier for people to use, what keeps them staying there longer, right? And the scientists and the analysts would like come up with because YouTube is a large platform, they'll come up with a ton of data to start figuring out, here are 10 different reasons why someone is staying on YouTube. And they'll try to make sure that that becomes a feature of the YouTube Premium experience. And then engineers would actually code it, right? Within engineers also, there would be like a full stack engineer, the front end engineer, the back end engineer, QA, DevOps, like the whole gamut of engineers, right? And each one of them would be doing their bit, right, to make sure that it's so engineers need to make sure that the platform is scalable. It shouldn't be that if 5 million people end up coming onto the platform tomorrow, it just breaks completely, right? So they'll make sure that it's super scalable. It works at all frequencies. It allows more and more people to come in. It allows people to invite their families and so on and so forth. So build out the entire feature, right? Once this is ready to ship and like we are ready to take it to market, that's where the growth managers come into play. That what are the different ways in which we can pitch YouTube Premium to customers? Do we go the normal YouTube route? Do we run ads there? Do we show a quick button on YouTube that you can just convert your account to YouTube Premium by adding payment details? Do we add it to the Google homepage? I mean, there's just so many things that they could do, right? And they are the ones who sort of work with the product marketing specialist and then acquisition specialist to come up with this plan. And then the product marketing specialists focus on where can you place YouTube Premium so that more and more people see it and they're willing to sort of download it, experience it, and then buy it. And the acquisition specialist will create content around this. They'll go to social media, they'll do like strong SEO marketing so that if someone is searching for a paid music subscription service, YouTube sort of comes on, let's say, first on the ranking, on Google search and other searches, right? So you see that to launch, to actually create a product and then launch it, all of these roles were involved. And as more and more products are being launched in the market, as more and more features and functions are being launched within those products, this is the team that's making all of that happen, right? This is this sort of group of people who are going out there and particular, like the companies have incredible aspirations, right? For example, I remember reading an article that spoke of Zoom. When the pandemic hit, so there are multiple like video calling platforms, right? So there is WebEx, there is Microsoft Teams, there is Google Hangout, and there is Zoom, and there are a bunch of other people as well. What most of these platforms do is that they would normally keep a 20% buffer, that if the usage surges, we can tackle, like if there are 80 people today, we can take 20 more people and the system would still not break, right? And think of that at millions of numbers. For Zoom, that number was 50%. So if 50 users are on the platform today and 50 more come in out of nowhere, our platform will still work, right? It will still scale. And they were the only ones to do this, right? So when the pandemic hit and everyone was in need of video conferencing, right? Other platforms kept crashing, right? So WebEx, Hangout, they were always slow, crashing, people were disturbed and bothered, not Zoom. Zoom worked fundamentally exceptionally during that entire time, which is why so many more people shifted to Zoom, and you see everything else is history, right? So Zoom did a $35 billion IPO, and they're like a massive corporation right now. So yeah, that's what these people do. This entire group of people.
and we have a question from the audience. So what are the tasks of an analyst? When you say analyst, are we talking about data analyst?
Uh, I think let's look at the entire set of analysts. So product analyst, business analyst,
Okay.
data analyst, data scientists. For all of them, these are people who make stories out of data, right? They are able to look at, let's say you have this login experience on the platform, right? And so you need to fill in certain details, and you sign up. Imagine any XYZ platform, and the analyst keeps checking how much time does it take for people to sign up on this platform. And let's say what they are able to observe through the data that comes in is that, oh, it takes 5 minutes for someone to sign up on our platform versus a competitor who makes this happen in just 1 minute, right? Which means that we are giving a poorer experience to our users and others are giving a better experience. And the analyst will come back and tell the product team, folks, let's look at it differently. Let's sort of make it faster, more seamless, easier for our users to come onto our platform. And they are the ones who inform the team about this, right? Who sort of build out. And in terms of how would it work, let's say converting a 5-minute login to 1-minute login experience, it would require to take away so much information. It would just make sure that only the bare bones structures are there. That's what the analysts do, right? So they are the ones who make perfect sense of data and then understand that this is what is happening to the user because of how they see the data, right? And they come back to the product team and say that let's change this, right? Because it's not working for our users. So very important cogs in the system. Without analysts, you will miss out on understanding whether what you built for the end user is actually working for them or not.
I see, I see. And let's say I don't like coding. Okay, I'm not into coding. Uh, do I need to code to be an engineer? Yes. Do I need to know how to code for the rest of the roles?
Not really, like just I'll be super honest here. I don't know how to code. I've never coded in my entire life, right?
Okay, you
But
give me hope then. Okay.
but I understand logic, right? I understand human experiences, right? And I sort of bring that back into my role. So, and again, because of the world we live in and how quickly things are changing, um, we have no code solutions where you don't even need to learn to code. Let's say if you want to build an app, you can just drag and drop things and actually build a complete app without having to write a single line of code. It's only when you want your sort of app to do specialist things, which are really customized, highly like personalized and that kind of experience. That's when you need your engineering chops. But other than that, it's becoming more and more easier to build tools and platforms and applications without having to code for a single line, right? So if you're not an engineer, no worries. There are apps, like you can pick up any of the other roles and you will do well. In fact, if you end up even becoming an entrepreneur and you need to like sort of build your own apps or like platforms or websites, you can do that without writing a single line of code. So that's how easy it has become today.
Okay. And so someone asks, so who are the ones who test the products and the codes to analyze? Is that the engineers?
Okay, so I think in terms of testing what you're building, that's the job of the QA engineers. So they are the quality, assurance folks. They're constantly checking if the code is going to stay intact. Is it going to break? Does it, break at a certain point? What's the break point? Are there any edge cases which we have not thought about in our code? And that's what the QA do consistently, right? In terms of analyzing user data, like for example, how many people signed up, how many people are using it, how long are they using it, what are they doing once they're there on the platform, which are the most used features, which are not, what do we build next? All of that is analysts, like product and product analysts, data scientists. That's all that they do, right? You would have also heard the terms like artificial intelligence, machine learning. So essentially these are systems that look at large scale data and start dissecting again stories out of it, right? So for example, let's say I'm building a platform for school children and I want them to learn math on like a platform that I've built, right? And I want it to be driven by machine learning. So what I would do is I would create this whole like massive database of questions, and I will create a structure where I'll like ask one question to a student. Based on how they answer, I'll either give a higher level or lower level question, and through a series of, let's say, 15, 20, 30 questions, I'll be able to figure out what's their competency level in mathematics right now, and where are their gaps, what are they lacking. All of this can be done using, of course, it was big data at first, and that's what we use most, but eventually machine learning came into the fore, and it's starting to make quite headroads. And at some point, it'll get more and more powerful, right? So you would have heard of things like the Google Go, the AI that plays the game Go better than humans, right? That's the sort of extreme use cases of machine learning today. Yeah.
Okay, and so when we talk about big data, that refers to like all the information interconnected and all those possibilities we have. And when we talk about machine learning, we're talking about specific like AI learning and being able to give us more information or knowledge by learning from information and reinforcing themselves, something like that.
Absolutely, Mitra. So I think I think AI and ML are basically successors to big data. So initially we had big data, and individual humans looked through data to figure out what was the story there, right? What's happening? Like you look at extremely large sets of data to figure this is what I analyze or predict that this is going to happen, right? Eventually, the systems got more and more complex. The processing capability of systems increased, and a lot of things that was humanized at some point is getting mechanized, right? It's sort of the system itself trying to analyze things, look at data, and predict that this is what is going to happen. Like, for example, in a lot of ways, things like weather is getting it's the quality of our ability to track a large amount of data, like hundreds of years of data, to predict what the weather is going to be like in the next 5 years, right? And that's how ML is coming into play. So it's anywhere that you have a large set of data, and you need to like crunch a lot of that data and come out with something that's predictive in nature. And that's where ML is playing a significant role today.
Okay, I see. And could you say what are the skills that all these roles have in common, and which are specific skills we need for each specific role?
Okay, so I think I would sort of unpack that question in two different ways. So for each of these roles, except for, let's say, managers don't need any specific skills, right? You need to be good at something very specifically to set in a role, right? Let's say if you are a UI UX designer, you need good, like, you need to be able to use tools like Figma and Adobe XD to the best of your possibilities, right? Of course, you need to understand humans and behavior and then get all of that, but you need to understand these tools, right? So for each of these roles, there are certain tools that you need to be great at. Like, for example, if you are a product marketing specialist, right? So you need to be like extremely good at Google Analytics, Mixpanel, Hotjar, tools like that, right? So for each of these roles, there are certain sort of systems that you should be able to use, skills that you have, tools that you can use. But across the board, what's most like common across all of these roles is that you need to be able to think of the user at the center, right? Like, for example, at VI, all of the individuals who are in the call today are sort of our users, right? So I always think of them when you're trying to design things. That's center. Second is you need to be able to have a like growth mindset. So if let's say you hit a roadblock, you hit a problem, you're always thinking, what can I change here so that this works out, right? Like I gave the example of the login system, right? So okay, let's quickly change that. So you need to be able to constantly be on your feet, think quickly, and start making iterations and changes to a system. And that's across the board, right? So your problem solving capabilities need to be absolutely on point if you want to be in any of these roles, and you want to be a good sort of resource in any of these roles, right? But there are things that one has to learn specifically as well, but then these common skills and knowledge and the way you operate is also very critical.
And I imagine the role of critical skills, right? Critical thinking skills, because we always need to analyze many different aspects and have many variables and many scenarios and many things in place. So I think it must be fun. How do you find it your role? What is it for you to be a product well, head of product manager? How do you find it? What do you like the most about what you do?
I think what I enjoy the most is that um, you get to sit at the center of the organization and see and interact with all of your team members, right, across different functions, across different roles, and then work with them to really solve for the end user, right? Because you know that you build something, it's never perfect, right? There's always place to grow. There's always a way to make it better, the experience better for end users, and that's what you're fighting day in day out, right? So what do we change? How do we make this better? And I've actually sort of, I use a very it's not my framework, but it's a simple framework that allows me to do my job in the best possible way, right? So let's say, when I have a problem, like let's say the platform, there are certain issues that need to be solved. I always use a combination of what I call creativity and critical thinking, because essentially I look at the problem statement. I think of, hey, what are the 10, 15, 20, 25, 100 ways in which this can be solved, right? And I think of all of them. I sort of note them down. And so that's sort of my ability to think divergently, right? So divergent thinking. If there's a problem, there must be 100 ways of solving it at least, right? And then I look at what are my constraints. Is time my constraint? Is resources my constraint, right? What is it that is going to make sure that I look at all of those potential ways of solving it, and I realize, okay, here are the 3 different ways which are the best suited based on the situation I'm in, right? Let's say if I have a time constraint, I will look at a solution that's quick in terms of fixing, right? And that's my convergent thinking capabilities. And that's critical thinking for me, right? So combination of divergent and convergent thinking allows me to come to a point where if I have a problem statement, very quickly I'm able to get to a point where I know here's how I'm going to solve it. And yeah, that's pretty much what I do on a day in day out basis, to be really honest.
Yeah, that's really interesting because, well, you said creative, right? Like the creative process, as you mentioned, it has like 2 different phases, right? Like the first phase is this divergent moment where we think we do a brainstorm, we think of all of the potential solutions and we don't censor anything, we just bring many, many, many ideas. And then we start thinking, okay, is this applicable? Is this really efficient? Can we really cost this? Can we pay for it? And then that when the convergent phase comes, right? When we start saying ruling out and now this doesn't work. And I think that's really interesting, right? Because we're all the time playing with different ideas, different options. So that's being creative, right? And at the same time, we are sharpening our critical thinking skills because we are trying to really say, okay, but it is not just about being creative. Then we need to say, does this really work? Does this solve what we're looking for, right? So
Absolutely.
I think that's really, really interesting, right? To have these both sides connecting. Do you have any, what questions do we have from the audience? Share your questions. What would you like to ask to our head of product? And Priya, would you like to share what is our product? What do you work on exactly?
Sure. So essentially, our product is something that we built for 4 different stakeholders. So we have interns, like some of our students who are here. We have host companies, another group of stakeholders who work with some of these interns. We have some of our larger partners, so B2B partners, and then we have internal teams, right? So essentially, the product that we have at VI connects all of them together. So interns are able to put an application in for a project plan that they found from a host company. The host company is able to sort of take a look at the intern's profile and decide whether they want to have them as an intern or not. Then there is the B2B partners who like some of our students are actually either from a university who's our partner, or from like a foundation who's our partner, and that's the sort of third stakeholder that we have built our platform for, so that we can send them the right reports, let them know how many students are going through this process, what's the overall impact, how's this going, so that they are completely informed. And then our internal teams who need to work with these stakeholders and work towards managing them, sort of platform for them as well. So essentially the product is a combination of this entire system that's sort of interacting with one another, working together. And so my role every single day is to make sure that each of these stakeholders has a better experience than they had yesterday. And that's what the entire team is working towards, right? So we have product squads in our teams. We have a very good, sort of marketing specialists who are on our team. And every single day we are like, for example, I saw this on our platform that, okay, the sign up experience can be better, right? The internship application experience can be better. And we are like working towards making that better for the next set of interns who come onto the platform. So that's pretty much it. That's the job. Just keep making sure that we get to a point where we create a world-class, amazing experience for all of our stakeholders, so that when they interact with VI, they are happy and satisfied with the experience they've had.
And what is the most challenging for you in your role?
To prioritize, because you want to make all the changes in one go, right? You want to just like have a magic wand or just snap your fingers and just get it all done. But unfortunately, that's not true. It takes so much time to first look at, what are the different things that you can solve for, which are the most urgent, which are less urgent, and then you have to prioritize. It creates a backlog. You keep looking at the backlog, and while you're looking at the backlog, there are new things that crop up. You have to do new things. You have to set up new functions, you have to set up new features. So I think that's the constant tussle, right? Because you can't do all of this in one go, and it's always a constant battle internally, but also within the team, that what do you pick, or what do you build first, right? So I think that remains the single biggest challenge. And every single day, you're hoping that, okay, let's say in 6 months time we will reach a phase where we'll have no backlogs, right? Our product would work phenomenally well. Never happens. So you keep on sort of going through this process over and over again over the years. Yeah. So that's pretty much the hardest bit about the job.
Yeah, which is, I definitely understand, especially when you have so many stakeholders. Probably many people want many things solved now, and you say, hey, it doesn't work like that. We need to first decide, first thing first. Definitely. Okay, so I want to wrap up a little bit about what you shared today. And one very piece of information, very important information I got now is like, okay, so in any of these roles, we're always having the user as the center of what we're trying to do. We're working for the user, we're solving problems for the user, right? We want the user to have really good experience and that they choose our product and they continue choosing us, right? So user, we should always have it in the center of what we do. And you also mentioned the importance of always learning, right? Like you started your presentation saying, okay, 20 years ago, these roles didn't exist. This definitely, when I went to university, this didn't exist. So who knows what else will be here in 5 years time, right? What new roles will exist? And for that, we need to be all the time learning, right? Never stop. When we think, okay, I got this, at that moment we need to say, really, let's really think what I can be learning. And you also said, okay, it is super important to be creative, right? To think out of the box. Don't take for granted what you know. Try, test, experience, and especially in this field, right? That where everything goes so fast, you need to be trying and making mistakes and then try again. Absolutely. And so, what is your piece of advice for someone who's wanting to create a career in tech? What could you share with them?
Just this, for me, I think I wouldn't have been in this role if I didn't believe that I can do this role, right? I didn't learn product, really, to be honest. Like, no one taught me this in university, that, okay, you are going to be in a product role, so learn about it, right? Never came up. But I believed, right, that, hey, someday if I work hard enough, if I am able to sharpen my skills, I'll be sitting in this role. And that's my advice to people, right? So if you want to go after something, go after it. There is no age to learn things. Like, if you are not an engineer today, nothing stops you from becoming an engineer if you really want to. to be honest. So that's it. Like if you really want something, just put in all your hard work and effort, go after it, because no time better than this to sort of build a career in technology. And all of you are sitting at that exceptional place to make that happen. So yeah, go ahead and make your awesome careers in technology.
Well, thank you very much, Priya. It was wonderful talking to you. For those who are here today, you can stay in touch with our speaker. You can look for him in LinkedIn. Remember, LinkedIn is a super powerful tool to stay connected. It's the widest professional network. So remember to check your LinkedIn, make sure it's updated, and then start inviting different people like Priya to your network. And you can always add me, Mirta Ire. Today, my name is Virtual Internships, but you can stay in touch with us. And remember, you can always watch our previous webinars on our YouTube channel. You can subscribe. And remember, very important, you have 2 coaching calls. Coaching calls are your opportunity to talk about career development, right? What are your next steps? How did this internship help you realize perhaps what skills you have, what else you can be doing now that you have this experience? How are you going to present this experience to your next job interview? Everything related to career development, you can discuss it with a coach. So be attentive to your email. Probably you have already received an email to book your call, or you will receive one. Okay, so if you receive that email, book your call, because it's going to be a very interesting call for yourself. So thanks everyone for joining. It was really very, very interesting. Thank you, PD, for being with us today. It was really nice. And well, I hope our participants will look for you in internet and in LinkedIn. And if you have any specific question, then please reach out to PD, okay? Thank you, everyone. Wish you a happy continuation of your day.
Thank you so much, everyone.